So I've seen a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of talk, a lot of posts online recently about how the Xbox brand is dead, about how the Xbox Series X is a waste of money, and about how owning any Xbox in 2026 is pointless. Yeah, I've got almost 1,000 games, more than 20 video game consoles, and I still use the Series X more than anything else in my room. Let me explain why. Yeah, so firstly, let me just explain that this is not a console wars video. So I am not saying that one console is better than the other. I have a PlayStation 5, I've got a Switch, and of course I've got an Xbox Series X. And look, I think they're all absolutely fantastic consoles. I think that each one does specific things better than each other, but I don't think one of them is overall the better console. I collect for all three consoles as well, as you can see around me. You know, I've got a lot of love for Sony, for the PlayStation. I've got a lot of love for Nintendo, all their consoles in the past. And of course for Microsoft and the Xbox ecosystem. And this video is also not a go or not a response to anybody else's opinion. You know, people of course are entitled to their own opinion. And if they've got an Xbox Series S or Series X that they've not played for 3 or 4 years, then to them, you know, they might consider that console dead or pointless or a waste of money. But for me and for the 500 million people around the world who play Xbox each year, it clearly is alive and it is thriving. So yeah, I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why it's still my go-to console in 2026 and why I use it on a daily basis. So it probably comes as absolutely no surprise that the first thing I'm going to talk about is backwards compatibility. Backwards compatibility has always been one of Xbox's, you know, key selling points and key features that they've always stuck to throughout the life of Xbox, from the 360, which could play original Xbox games, the Xbox One, which could play Xbox 360 games, and now the Series X, which can play every single Xbox One game, over 600 Xbox 360 games, and a selection of original Xbox games from, what, like 25 years ago now? And that means for people like me who've got, you know, a collection of hundreds and hundreds of games, I can pretty much take any of these Xbox games, pop them in the console, and I'm good to go. I don't need to have my original Xbox hooked up. I don't need to have my 360 plugged in. I can leave the Xbox One in the loft. I can just have the one system plugged in and have access to hundreds and hundreds of games. It also means I don't need things like adapters for component cables. I literally just need one HDMI cable and it plugs into my new 4K TV. And that's where the Series X also really, really astonishes people. It doesn't just play all the games, but it actually optimizes them for modern technology. So games like Red Dead Redemption, when you put that into your Series X, that's a 360 game by the way, when you put that into your Series X, it upscales it to 4K. So it looks absolutely incredible even today. And things like Left 4 Dead, it can run in 60 frames per second, meaning it runs more smoothly than on original hardware. So yeah, not only is it convenient and it plays all those backwards games, it also makes them look and run much better today. And what's more is that most of these games are still dirt cheap today. The Xbox 360, for example, had one of the best library of games of all time for any system in the past. It had so many exclusives, so many 10 out of 10 AAA games. And yeah, you can pick a lot of these up over here in the UK at things like CEX or eBay for under £5-10. And with the optimization, you're basically getting a remaster of that game for free, completely free. You know, once you own the disc, you own the disc. You can pop it in and you can play it. So yeah, backwards compatibility continues to be one of the main reasons to own an Xbox in 2026. And a lot of these games are actually surprisingly still online. In my recent video, which I will link somewhere up here, I actually went back and jumped into, I think, like 5 or 6 Xbox 360 games, went online and tried to find lobbies, and astonishingly, I actually got in like full lobbies on certain games within like 10-20 seconds of searching. So well worth jumping back into today. Next up is Gamepass. And yes, look, I know, when it first launched, Gamepass was the best deal in gaming. And since then, especially recently towards the end of 2025, it has become a lot more expensive. However, I still do think it is the best game subscription service out there. I still think it's better than things like PlayStation's, I think it's PlayStation Now, PlayStation Plus that they offer. And there are massive benefits to owning Game Pass, even for someone like me who has access to hundreds of games already and buys most of my games on disc. So firstly, a lot of people don't realise there are actually more than one tier to Xbox Game Pass. So yes, Game Pass Ultimate is, I think it's like £24 or $30 now. However, I actually pay for the premium level, which is the medium level, and that is half the price. It's £11.99 over here in the UK, and that still gives me access to over 200 games, including loads of AAA games like Assassin's Creed, for example. And that also includes Xbox Live, so I can play games online with friends or random people. Now, if you upgrade and get Game Pass Ultimate, which is the expensive one, you obviously then get the day one AAA big releases, like your Call of Duty, like Forza Horizon, the new one coming out later this year. You'll access them straight away, and that means you don't have to go out and fork out £70 or $80 on a new release. You've got it on day one, already installed on your console, and you're only paying 20 odd pounds for it essentially that month. And this is good because it means that you can try games before you have to buy them. Say the newest game's coming out or a new game's coming out and you're not sure whether you want to pay £70 for it, you can pay £12 or £25, play it for a month, maybe even finish it, who knows, for that month, and then decide whether you want to keep paying for Game Pass and keep playing it another month, or if you want to cancel Game Pass and then buy the game, which at that point has hopefully dropped a little bit in price. And it also, for me, is great because I find games on there that I didn't know existed or would never otherwise try. Like I say, I do buy most of my games on disc. Obviously, I've got a collection. But I still, sometimes when I can't think of anything to play or I want to just play something for an hour, I'll sit down, scroll through Game Pass and pick out something I've never heard from before. And it turns out to be a really good game and I really enjoy it. So it's also good for that. And a lot of people also don't realise that you can actually get Game Pass quite a bit cheaper if you go online and get a code from somewhere like Loaded, which is CD keys, used to be CD keys. And on there you can often get up to like 30-40% off if you buy like a 3-month gift card or a 12-month gift card. And that obviously then substantially reduces the cost. And it's exactly the same service, you just put the code in on your console to redeem it. Okay, now we're going to talk about the controller, because I think this is the best controller ever made. It is super, super comfy in your hand. It is really well made, it's really sturdy, and you can literally sit and play with this thing for hours on end. And it never hurts your hand, it never becomes uncomfy. It's just a solid, really good controller. And yes, the PlayStation 5 does have some features that this one doesn't, which we'll talk about in a second. But first, controversially, I actually do prefer having batteries. Quite often I'll go downstairs to play my PlayStation 5, I just want an hour on it to play a game and my controller will be dead. That means I either have to can't sit on my couch because I need to plug the controller in and sit next in front of the TV right at the front, or I have to leave it on charge for an hour and then come back and play the game later, by which point I'll be busy or have something else to do. With my Xbox controller, I have 4 rechargeable batteries. I've always got 2 on charge, 2 in the pad. And it just means that within 10 seconds, I can replace the batteries and I've got a fully charged controller again. Never having to plug it in, never having to worry about it not being charged. And yeah, for me, I know a lot of people prefer the chargeable thing, but yeah, for me, having batteries is just a win-win. It just works better for me, and yeah, I massively prefer that. Moving on to the PlayStation 5 controller, like we mentioned, it obviously does have these features such as the touchpad at the top and the haptic feedback triggers. However, while I'm not going to drop too low and say they're gimmicky as such, I don't think that they're utilised that often. I certainly don't use them myself that often. I played Astro Bot last year, which was, by the way, one of the best games I've played in the last 2 years. And that made use of them really, really well. That game was designed for the DualSense controller. The DualSense actually plays like it's one of the key focuses of the game, the DualSense. And it obviously was made to utilise those features. But outside of that, I actually tend to turn those features off for a lot of games. I was playing Ghost of Yotei recently, which is the best game I've played in the past year. And the bits where you had to like blow into the controller and use a touchpad to draw were my least favourite parts of the game. And I know a lot of people actually turn the haptic triggers off for shooters such as Call of Duty because I think they actually increase input delay. So yeah, while the PS5, again, I'm not slating that controller, I think it's actually way better than things like the PS3 and PS4 controller, which I found super uncomfy. I just think the Xbox Series X controller does all the basics right. Nothing super innovative, but it is just really comfy and solid, and yeah, it's a great controller for long gaming sessions. Okay, now I'm going to talk about something that is probably more relatable to me and might not be relatable to you, but it is one of the reasons I play my Series X just more than my PlayStation 5, and it's one of the reasons that the Xbox is not dead, alright? The Xbox is certainly alive and alive today, and I'm sure the 500 million Xbox players each year would agree with me, and that is playing with friends. So most of my friends are not as hardcore as gamers as myself. They don't collect games, but they enjoy casual gaming. They enjoy things like Call of Duty, things like FIFA, things like Halo. And when the latest generation of consoles first came out, they didn't want to spend £500 on a new console because they're not going to play it all that often. So the Xbox Series X was a great way in for them. It was a great opportunity for them to just spend £250, half the price, but still have an next-gen system, still have access to all these newer games, and still play with their friends. And while I know that most games nowadays are cross-play, all my friends have got an Xbox. And it just means that we still use things like Xbox Party Chat to communicate, and we still have access to play games that are exclusive on the Xbox system. Obviously, a lot of those, again, that's another story that they're now moving to PlayStation, so that might change in the future, look, I'm not going to lie. But for now and over the past few years, we have enjoyed games like Halo, for example, and I play a lot of Forza Horizon Online 2 with communities on there. And the Xbox just gives me that community with my friends to play. And a lot of that goes back to when Xbox Live first launched, and me and my friends all got Xboxes back then on the 360 and got Xbox Live. And it was such a great service, and it really has, ever since that day, Xbox Live continued to be a great service. Yeah, I'm not saying the PlayStation Now or PlayStation, I think it's PlayStation Now, isn't it? The PlayStation Online. I'm not saying that's not great service. It's just my friends are all on Xbox, I'm on Xbox, and yeah, Xbox, the communities on Xbox are still very much alive today. It's just where I tend to play with my friends more. And yeah, it just slightly makes it that much easier to play online with my friends today. And that takes me on to the games. Now, firstly, I know PlayStation make better games, okay? That is without a doubt. Over the last 10 years, games like The Last of Us, Uncharted, God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon, Ghost of Tsushima, and Ghost of Yotei, they are way better games than anything Xbox has put out, in my opinion. However, two things. Firstly, that doesn't mean that Xbox hasn't put out some good games as well. And secondly, all those games are very, very single-player, story-driven games. They're all amazing games, and I've loved all of them. However, they're more single-player focused, whereas Xbox's games that they've released, again, like your Forza Horizons and your newer Halo games and their Master Chief Collection and all that, are more online community-focused games. Now, while most of these, like we've said, are moving over to other systems, such as PlayStation, Nintendo, and PC, in recent years, Xbox has been the only console where you can play them, with some games actually remaining exclusive to the Xbox as well. And without an Xbox, I wouldn't have been able to play these games over the past few years. And I think last year, Xbox had 500 million users still. So these games have still got massive communities online. And if you've not got an Xbox, you're missing out on that. And it's certainly not pointless owning one if you've got access to those communities and those great games. And that brings me on to the system itself. And yeah, it's an absolutely brilliant system. So yeah, I got mine on day one, like, was that 6-7 years ago now? And I've had absolutely no issues with it at all. It still runs like new today. All the features are still fantastic. Things like quick resume, meaning I can play more than one game at once. The disk drive's absolutely fine. Connectivity is great. All the games look fantastic. And it runs new releases still really, really smoothly and well. Now, obviously, you're paying £500 for a console, so it should work well. But yeah, it still does, and quite often with tech these days, you know, people get tech and it quickly becomes outdated as things move on. But that's not the case with the Series X. It runs really, really well even today. And essentially does give me everything that I need from a video game system, if not more than any other system that I own. So yeah, the Xbox Series X is definitely, in my opinion, still alive today, and it's certainly not dead. It's not pointless owning. It's not a waste of money. Whether you should own one obviously does depend on a lot of factors. It depends if the games on there are games that you want to play. It depends whether you already own a PlayStation, now them games are going to PlayStation. You don't need to own both consoles, I'm not going to lie and say you do. Depends what your friends own and what games your friends play. If they play Xbox exclusives or if they've all got Xboxes, then it might be easier to jump on an Xbox with them rather than having a Switch or a PlayStation. Backwards compatibility and Game Pass are still both massive, massive draws to the system. And there's something that other consoles still don't properly offer or don't offer as well as what Xbox do with their ecosystem. And the controller is, you know, definitely the best controller I've ever used. So the Xbox Series X does definitely still continue to offer something for gamers in 2026. And I'm still certainly playing it every single day and will continue to play it into the future. Thanks for watching and keep gaming.